It was really great when I did the 23andMe. And you and Terry were talking about the Chinese thing.
Right.
About how I had a little bit of Chinese. What the fuck you laughing about?
Because...
Oh, I know you're laughing about.
But should I say it about?
Yeah.
I was dating this Asian guy, right? And so Joey would always be like, "You going out with the Doyson, the Doyson?" And I'm like, "What the fuck is a Doyson?" He goes like, "That was the name we called Asian people when I was a kid, Chinese people." And then I was like, "Shut up, that's so fucked up." And then he does the Ancestry in me or 23andMe, and he's like, "I'm 2%." I'm like, "Oh my god, you're a Doyson."
I'm a Doyson. And then you justified it. You said that the Chinese, way before Columbus, took a tour around the world.
Well, there's also, I read a book once where there was a great armada as a Chinese empire fell that had gone out, like, because they would go out for like 3 to 7 years or whatever, and that they went all the way around the world, and it'd be a lot of ships together, an armada. And so if a ship crashed, they would take them on, but as soon as they hit land, they had to go on the land, and then they would just kind of, meld into the people that were there, and that genetically, that's why they can tell and say Asian, like that makes complete sense, because they probably went all the way around and were up in Cuba. They went all the way around, and they had certain types of chickens that genetically test, like that are in South America, are Asian, have some kind of Asian component, and they say that's part of it. I mean, it's interesting when you start thinking about history like that, No,
and especially your history, like I ended up west. Well, I always knew, because the Cuban history, I always knew that the island was originally Indians. Columbus came, and then the slave trade, and then people from Spain went there after a war, and you had this big fucking galash of people. Irish went there during the Battle of the Boyne, so you had all this, just like anything else. There was a big Jewish community, like I couldn't believe how big the Jewish community was down there.
In Cuba, they have a big Chinese community, right?
Biggest Chinatown in the world, from China until 1960 or something just outrageous. And when Bourdain went, he went to the Chinatown. They were like, it's not Chinatown no more. Like, all the Chinese left, like all that.
Oh, really?
And there's only one left now that we've discussed. There's only one Cuban Chinese cook left.
Oh, really?
And he's on 79th Street in Broadway, like Harry Dodd. There's even a video about him on YouTube. Like, he's the last guy left. Like, that's it.
Oh.
That when I was a kid, there were probably 5 of those Chinese Cuban restaurants in the area. Now they're down to 1.
How crazy must it be to move to a different country? Like, now it might be a little bit easier, but like I'm like 3rd or 4th generation, maybe even more. I don't know about you, Felicia, but Joey, I mean, you immigrated from a different country. It must be terrifying. It must be like I don't think I can even understand what it's like.
I don't think that it was as terrifying because of my age.
That's true.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't really a thought. Like, if I really, 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 really sit and think, if you ask me anything about Cuba, there's nothing I remember except looking at the ocean one day. And I remember driving with my dad in a car like that. But I also remember driving through the Lincoln Tunnel with my dad, sitting in the driver's seat with no seatbelt, and you could still drive. Like, I have more memories of my dad in the United States than I do in Cuba. Like, I don't remember none of that shit. I remember going to kindergarten and the language barrier. Like I was telling Felicia, when I was a kid, I wouldn't eat chocolate till nighttime. And people go, why do you eat chocolate at nighttime? I says, because that's what it says, chocolate late.
Yeah.
So I thought it was chocolate late, you know? So I didn't know. Like, when I was 5, I would always save chocolate for the nighttime.
Yeah.
Why do you drink? Because it's chocolate late. Like, all those things to me seem interesting. That's why I try to be nice to people, but I'm extra nicer to immigrants. Because I remember those 2 or 3 year window, how insecure I felt. And it wasn't just the insecurity. I tell a joke on stage that it really bothers me to tell this joke when I say it, about that time period. I was allergic to maple syrup. I was a really sickly kid. So it wasn't bad enough that I was sickly. Now I was an immigrant. So I was to these little white kids on 88th Street. I was this fucking spick pariah that was always with bandages, or I always had bandages on my arm from getting blood drawn.
So, like, not only are you new, which is scary.
Yeah. So
you're Spanish.
Couldn't speak Spanish.
Wow.
And I was fucking sickly. That fucking destroyed me. And my dad had died. Mm-hmm. So my mom said every time a door opened, you would look at the door.
Right.
So I was just a fucking mess. But I still remember, like, I don't think somebody made fun of me. I think somebody said I wasn't American, and in my mind, I was like, you know what, fuck you. I'll prove to you I'm an American. I'm going to go eat hot dogs. Like, I still remember thinking, if I had enough hot dogs, I'd be a fucking American. Like, things like that.
Right, right.